Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Inman in Studio. I'm Lauren Walker. I'm Senior Director of Strategy here at Inman. And today we are going to talk to new agents. There's been a lot of conversation in our social channels about new agents coming into the industry at a very interesting time in the world, in the economy, in the market. And so to do that, I'm really excited to sit down with John Crabb. John is CTO and co-founder of Agent Image. John, thank you so much for being here for this conversation.
Happy to be here.
It's an interesting audience, these new agents. They have a lot of things to consider. We recently did our virtual event, and there was a lot of content, a lot of conversation of saying, okay, I can't host the open house. I can't do the networking events right now. I can't be out there in person. What do I do? And so you're the perfect person to talk about this, of using digital tools to differentiate as a new agent.
Yeah, I know it's a really unique time, especially for newer agents, and I think probably the most challenging time for them. I think it's been a challenge for a lot of people to adapt and adjust. But
Mhm.
speaking, kind of firsthand, talking to a lot of new agents and being around them, and virtually and online, different summits, different things we've done together, even with Inman. And it really, the open houses they would pick up clients at, or different ways they would acquire new clients or meet people, has dramatically shifted.
Yeah,
And everything's screens. I mean, that's really what it is now. It's everybody's glued to a phone or a computer. And very few, not nearly as much interaction in person as there was
sure.
before. So
Yeah, and so I think that what I'd like to do today is talk about ways that new agents can be really effective with the choices they make in digital tools. And one thing that you've said in the past that I've always thought about is the idea of running toward technology. Can you talk a little bit about what you mean when you say that?
yeah, no, it's with technology and as fast as it moves, you see a lot of the time, agents in the industry in general are either sort of overwhelmed by the amount of tech that's out there,
Yes.
and trying to pick the right technology to utilize and to work with, or they're worried about technology either replacing them or sort of
Oh,
marginalizing
absolutely.
their portion or their part in the transaction, in the relationship. And I've always been a proponent saying, technology's here even before where we are today, and where the world stands now. Technology it moves at such a breakneck pace that you really have to embrace it. And there's so much that you can pick up efficiency wise, communication wise, things like that you can leverage with it. That it's never something to be scared of. It's here no
Mm,
matter what. And I just tell people, run towards it, embrace it. Learn from your colleagues and from your own experience what works, what doesn't work for you, but you can't be scared of it. And a big one's
yeah.
video, right? Because you've got to be comfortable being in front of people on video, on Instagram Live, things like that, all social platforms. And a lot of people have an aversion to that, myself included. We were just talking about before this. It's like I'm not a, it's almost like either screen fright or whatever. It's like you have to kind of work to get over that and be comfortable, because that's how people are going to relate to you and meet you nowadays and create a connection with you, more than ever before. So it's so
Mhm.
imperative that newer agents and agents in general embrace that and adapt it and adapt to it rather. So
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And the other thing to keep in mind that we were also just talking about is the world has become more forgiving.
mhm.
Authenticity has always been an important buzzword, but I think now more than ever, we understand what it means is that, you're going to jump on camera from your house, from your kitchen, and people are going to see your cat walk by and they're going to hear your
Right.
kids in the background, and that's okay.
Think about how we were in the beginning of all of this, and you talk about COVID and stuff, but you think about how everybody is still dressed properly, everybody's so still trying to be sharp and on point, and it's like, and you can see people's real personality and real sort of, who they are come through more and more, because people are becoming more and more comfortable with the fact that it doesn't have to be polished, doesn't have to be perfect. Everybody's a lot of time working from home, or
Yeah.
things like that. So I think it might have frozen for a second there. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
No, everything sounds good from my end. Thanks.
Perfect.
Yeah. So what's great about that you were just saying is this idea of leaning into the authenticity, and how does that translate into, their digital footprint, if you will? What should new agents be thinking about as they kind of establish their stronghold online?
You know, First and foremost, I think first you have to establish a brand, right? You've got
Yeah.
to you got to create a brand, and a brand that's identifiable. The sooner you do that in your career in general, the better, because anytime you don't, those are literally months and years you can't get back, that somebody would have identified with you as a brand, because it's
Hmm.
really what you are when you're out there. What will differentiate you? What will make you memorable? And I've talked to a lot of agents these last few months about the ones who embrace technology, who embrace social media, are already doing it, are so far ahead. The ones who
Yeah.
haven't are getting leapfrogged and passed by the people who were or are quickly adapting to it and embracing it. And that's kind of what we talked about earlier, was I say run towards technology. The quicker you understand what the medium now is for communication, and for people kind of getting to know you and you being relatable to them, it's a huge difference with that. So I tell people, establish a brand. That's everything, right? That's from logos, colors, things like that, which
Hmm.
kind of go without saying, but you really need to create that identity for yourself. So as you're posting things on social media, or as you have your website out there, you have any sort of review sites or stuff that have your logo. Before it was open house signs, right? And it was
Right.
all those things too, but it was a lot more, tangible things that people might drive by and see, or be in person and see, or pick up a flyer, things like that. Maybe those things aren't happening now, but your brand is that much more important because it's everywhere digitally. And it really is important to sort of establish that first, and then sort of be comfortable, more and more with, like I said, being in front of people online and socially, and being genuine, being
Yeah.
authentic. We talk about authentic versus manufactured brands all the time, and
Hmm.
people can read right through something if you think you're posting what you think they want to see,
Mm.
things like that. People get that very quickly. It's everybody's online so much now, they can see through a genuine brand versus something that's sort of, this is what they kind of is curated, it's what they want to see. It's a mix of houses, it's a mix of your family, your dogs, your hobbies, things like that. You never
Sure.
know what the place could connect to or relate to, and that's huge.
Yeah, and they're trying to create those personal connections, in a digital way. And so what do you suggest for new agents when they're thinking about, all right, I have to establish this website. What do I want from it? What does it need to do for me today versus what I'm going to need it to do maybe in 2 to 3 years?
You know, for that, just make sure it's professional. I mean, it
Mhm.
sounds so simplistic in a sense, but whoever you use to build your website, back in the day, people are like, it's kind of an afterthought. I have a website, maybe nobody will see it, maybe they'll see it. People didn't really understand the importance of it. And I would get that. I kind of see, because they're so busy with everything else that, but that's now literally the cornerstone of everything. It's
Yes.
what people are going to look to when they want to learn about you. It's where you can present yourself and control the narrative. You can control your reviews. You can control the video and the presentation of what they see for you as the expert of your community. There's so much that goes into that, that if it's not housed professionally, if it doesn't really
Mm.
emphasize your brand and convey that properly, it's such a lost opportunity, and it does cost people business. Because if you have an unprofessional website that doesn't that sort of looks, or it looks like everyone else's, and it doesn't portray you as somebody who's unique and stands out, in this day and age, it's a shame, because it's truly something that people are gonna. You need to be memorable. It has to stand out. It has to capture their attention within a matter of seconds, and it's so imperative. And it doesn't have to be an expensive website. That's the other thing too. People sometimes get sort of like, okay, well, if I want a site like this top agent, that top agent, it's going to cost me a fortune.
Right.
That's not true. There are things out there that you can own as a website that are under $1,000 if you're a new agent starting out, that are absolutely beautiful and will brand you beautifully. And again, that goes for us and other products that are out there. There's so many options to look at.
Sure.
I'm just a huge fan of something that really houses everything you can tell and share about your story, about you as the expert of your community, and sort of why so much choose to work with you, and why so much want to get to know you. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I was talking about the idea of owning your website,
Hmm.
right? And that these new agents come into the business maybe for a large franchise, and they're
Hmm.
handed a tech stack.
Yep.
And that might include a pre-made website. That sounds kind of perfect for a new agent to just hit the ground running. What should new agents be thinking about?
There's pros and cons. I think if you just need something up real quick that gets you a site up, right, when you're starting out, you're newly licensed, you need something. It's not a bad option. To me, I think what you need to think is past that. Where do you want the website to take you? If you build up a following, if you build up, search engine placement in Google is still extremely important. You want to own a website for that, just because if you didn't and you decide to one day leave that brokerage, or something changes in your career, I've heard horror stories, I've seen horror stories of people who had
Yeah.
a website tied to a brokerage or tied to another vendor, and they go to move it and they can't take it with them. And all of a sudden, it's costing a fortune, sometimes even more than the website, to actually migrate over all that content and do everything. You really should own your site from day one. And if not, if the broker template or something provided, there's a place for that. If it's something you just need something up, like I said, real quick in the
Yeah.
interim to get you going, and you've got so many other things on your plate, it's not the world's end. There's most of the brokerages now have pretty enough ones out there that'll get the job done initially.
Mm,
Um, but as soon as you can, and you have the ability to create something for yourself that's yours that you can take with you throughout your career, you absolutely should. And I think everybody kind of knows that at this point in the industry. It's sort
mm,
of second nature. I don't think people thought about it as much maybe 5, 10 years ago, but more and more, even the major brokerages we talked to that were, preferred vendors for and stuff, they like the idea of the agent owning their site, because it's
mm.
something that they can sort of say, hey, we're not here to lock you into a site or anything. We'll provide one. And, if you need something more than that, here's Agent Image or here's Company XYZ that can help you. But just always try and make sure you own your site. It's something that's kind of near and dear to my heart, because I've seen the alternative for it, and the
Yes.
stories that go along with it. So
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So let's go to the next step in kind of the agent's life cycle. They're establishing their stronghold, their digital presence. Now they're going to go and pitch themselves, to a client in the listing presentation. Where are the opportunities for new agents to really differentiate in that experience?
It's interesting, because if you're a newer agent, it's sort of this dichotomy where are you dealing primarily with buyers, right? Because most
Right.
newer agents are dealing with buyers a lot of the time. And if you're dealing with potential seller, because that'll happen too, you'll come across somebody who might be selling their home before they're buying their home, and you've got a couple opportunities, things like that. You, and this is there's a lot to this, but you want to stand out as much as you can. Initially, you might not have the resources to build something that's more of like a custom listing presentation, which sort of, this is a whole rabbit hole in itself from a conversation standpoint. But where the industry is headed, you're going to see a lot more of these virtual listing presentations, things like that. We're building a thing right now called Access, which some people who are watching this probably already heard of. It's gotten a lot of press through Real Deal, through Business Insider, Wall Street Journal, stuff like that.
Sure.
But we're trying to build something where, from a listing presentation standpoint, what I've seen for years, and it's been kind of the story forever, is the brokers provide a lot of these packages. But the thing is, if you're with the same brokerage as 3 other agents,